Right here on TMI on the ITV network, we're still analyzing critical situations right here in Nigeria and also globally. And something that has formed the crux of conversation this morning is the by-elections that took place all around Nigeria and particularly in Edo State. And to dissect this some more and talk about this with me, to analyze this, I have Barrister Matthew Edagise. He is a human rights lawyer, so you know we are doing right by the law having him this morning. A wonderful morning to you, sir. A pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so talking about the by-elections, particularly here in Edo State, there's been a lot of reports of vote buying, harassment, and just low voter turnouts that kind of characterize these elections. I think that is kind of the norm in Nigeria to hear issues like this. But what is your own assess of the recent by-elections that took place?
The by-election that took place 2 days ago, particularly in Edo State, Edo Central Senatorial vacant seats and the Ovia constituency, federal constituency. I am from Edo Central. I cast my ballot there. I was there, I participated. So, by-election by its very nature is an off-circle election. It's not like general election where there's massive campaign and massive awareness and enthusiasm. But by and large, comparatively, the turnout in my area was quite impressive. Where I voted, there was a good turnout of voters, and there was no incident of violence that has characterized every election in the past. So it was largely peaceful, and I would say it was free and fair.
To what analysis do you make that comment that it was free and fair? The fact that in your own constituency you saw...
Yes, because I was actively involved. I cast my vote, my ballot. Where I voted, I can speak for where I voted, my unit. There was no issue of irregularity. The ballot was cast, the votes were counted in the public glare, and the results were announced. That is the much I know. I can speak for where I voted.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, the fact that nationwide, the by-elections were nationwide, and you see that the APC actually swept 12 seats of the 16 vacant seats that were elected for, and it spells the victory for the APC in the 2027 by-elections, or would you say so?
You don't project what will happen in future by what has just happened now. Humans are not programmed. One's interests can change, and you can take decisions that are different from what you are taking now. Depends on the circumstance and the variables that we operate in future. 2027 is still very far away from now, and between now and then, a lot will still happen, socially, politically, and economically, that will influence voters' behavior. As we speak, APC might have swept the polls now, but you cannot tell what the mood of people will be in the general election and what factors will come to play. So basically, we can only speak for the now and while we look ahead to see what happens in the future. Talking about 2027, we cannot with certainty predict how Nigerian voters will behave.
All right, being a youth, this is something that concerns me and maybe all other youths out there. Taking an analysis, you see that the voter turnout in the youth wing, it was a lot more reduced. Do you say that this is disenfranchisement of the youth, or is just a speculation that is, born in the heart of the youth that there is no reason for us to come out because, maybe the results, the decisiveness is set in stone? But what's your comment on this?
Voters' apathy cannot be defined as disenfranchisement because it's a game of choice. The right to vote and not to vote is fundamental. If you have the right to cast your ballot, which is the franchise, and you refuse not to exercise that right, you cannot claim to have been disenfranchised. Disenfranchisement means you wanted to vote and you were denied the opportunity to cast your ballot. But apathy is when you are not interested in the process and you chose to stay away for reasons best known to you. So I wouldn't say the youth were disenfranchised. I would rather say they are losing faith in the system. And it is not a very healthy development because the future belongs to the youth. They should be actively involved and participate in what will affect their future. Otherwise, it will amount to a surrender of their faith. You surrender to your faith, surrender to faith, and your destiny will not be protected better by others, better than you do.
Truly. But what can be done to, enhance the younger electorate's participation in elections moving forward?
That basically will be determined or dependent on the nature of the policies of government and how it impacts on the people. Naturally, human beings will patronize what benefits them. If the system is showing no sign of hope, either benefit for the immediate or hope of future benefits, people will naturally lose the appetite to participate in the process where they feel there's nothing in there for them. It's a game of interest. If my interest is not represented in a process, I will not develop any enthusiasm to patronize that process. That is what is going on. There is failure of infrastructure in this country. There is near collapse of security. And unemployment is skyrocketing. And inflation is consuming the little income available to Nigerians to spend. So these are turned off. They do not show sign of hope. And without hope, human being will not be enthusiastic. It is left for the policymakers and those in power to ignite those policies that will stimulate hope and faith in the system. Then the youth will now have reason to patronize the process. There will be voters' enthusiasm in place of voters' apathy if the signs are showing evidence of hope and benefit to the masses, particularly the youth. If policies that will create jobs are put in place, and youth are seeing jobs springing up here and there, I'm very sure their enthusiasm will be triggered.
Very well said. Okay, so previously I had asked if the fact that APC won 12 seats out of the 16 contested and now having more an upper hand at the National Assembly spells a winning streak for the APC in 2027 elections. But now I want to ask if it also is a threat to the Nigerian democracy, having one party being so dominant in such a crucial aspect of our legislative system.
A party, among others, in every climb must be a dominant party at every given time. In the last United States election, the Republican became the dominant party. Before then, the Democrat was the dominant party. So if APC for now is dominant, doesn't mean that it will remain dominant forever. It now behoves the other political parties to wake up and do repoliticking and mobilization and sensitization. It's a game of competition. A dominant athlete will take the medal naturally because it's he who wins the race that gets the medal. And to win the race, you have to put in a lot of effort. So let no party go to bed and say APC is dominating. Nobody stopped them from also striving to take their rightful place in the political space. They should show more seriousness and zeal in terms of organization and leadership recruitment. And they must also develop that readiness to observe internal democracy. Because that is where we attract anybody into a party. where everybody will have a sense of belonging, and your interest and your stake will be better protected. If you go into a party and you are sure that you will not be treated equally, you might not have any interest in participating in that process or be a member. But if the membership is profitable and your interest is built-in, you can also aspire without let or hindrance. There's no internal oppression within the party structure. Then such a party will be attractive to people, just like the obedient movement was, where everybody have this sense of belonging.
The obedient movement was, but you know what people say about that. But what do you have to say? You know, you bring in the obedient movement into this, but you know what people say about that.
What did they actually say?
They say that it was the democratic system was flawed.
The democratic system was flawed, or the obedient movement was flawed?
You talked about the obedient movement being in the eyes of everyone and being publicized, meaning they did something right. And then people say the democratic system was flawed in the fact that there was a lapse and they did not, you know, emerge the winners of that particular election.
What I'm saying in effect is that obedient movement was not a political party.
It was a movement.
That movement, people involved in it were having a sense of belonging, of equal stake and equal opportunities. So that was why you saw that drive, that push, that force. Political parties that have that kind of attitude will naturally attract people to become members. That's what I'm saying. That wasn't a political party. It was a political movement. A political party should be able to generate that kind of steam and pressure, positive pressure, that will make people be attracted or magneted towards it. Because it's a game of numbers. The more membership you have, the greater your strength as a political party. Let there be no turn-off in terms of the process. Everybody who is a member of a political party should have a sense of belonging and should have equal right to participate in the entire party process and activities. Most of the parties are not doing that. There are actions that suggest segregation of the owners of the party and those who are just brought in to be used as candidate holders. It doesn't help party growth. Like the ANC in South Africa, it was anchored on strong ideology and philosophy. And you saw how powerful they were, and they are still powerful till tomorrow. So there must be that driving push and pull. And maybe people will say, yes, this is our own. We have a stake here. They will stick out their neck to project the interest of the party. If that is not present, it's just an association. There's no real drive that people will say, yes, they have a strong stake in it. They may not have the zeal to participate in the process. And without mass participation, no party can be strong.
All right. Starting your conversation and your bit, you mentioned that Edo Central Senatorial District, where you voted, that is at your own center, it was peaceful, it was free, and fair, there was a reasonable turnout.
Yes, very well.
But there are still speculations, right? There are still, on the media, there are still people saying otherwise, and you cannot discredit what they're saying because they also had experiences. Now, where I'm driving to is, what can civil society organizations do? What can we as a people do to make sure that this problem is nipped in the bud, and that when we have elections in Nigeria subsequently, you know, we don't hear things like this? Because I do not believe that there's no smoke without fire, right? So you might have seen free, fair, and credible elections, while another might have seen something else. So what can be done to make sure that this problem is nipped in the bud?
When you say there are speculations that there were irregularities and untoward behavior at certain polling units, I didn't witness that. It is the duty of the media, the press like you, to cover this event. And in the course of covering it, they show their findings. There
are some videos out there that actually showed irregularities and just
Yes, the irregularities spotted should be traced to a particular location. It is not, if it's a general thing, it will also show in those, your reportage and your findings. If it didn't happen in my own polling unit, it happened in unit Z or unit C or ward whatever. Let it be pinned down to where it happened. It should not be used to stain every other where, every other place where other people cast their vote and it was credible. If somebody is engaged in exam malpractice in a particular exam center, another who read very well, wrote very well, and they observe the rules of the examination, you can't say they are all cheats. It will be unfair. So let's situate irregularity to where it happened, so that we do not begin to say there was general irregularity, whereas it was maybe isolated case.
Very well. Well, thank you, sir. But just before we do take a breather and maybe continue our conversation later on, what you were part of the electorate in this election. You did tell us how you went out to vote. The people have expectations from the decisive winners. What would you say these expectations could be?
Expectation
Yes.
from those they have
from those they have put in power right now.
Of course. It is a game of sending people to go and represent you. Representation is basically responsibility to carry the interest of the people and their aspiration in your mandate. You are not voted to go and enjoy yourself in Abuja. You are voted to go and do a duty. And that duty should represent the interest of the people and their welfare. Basically, for instance, the Edo Central Senatorial District has been plagued with insecurity crisis for some time now. Kidnapping, rampant kidnapping, and attacks in the farmlands of farmers. So if anybody is sent to Abuja to represent that senatorial district, that should be at the front burner of his own deliberation and debate in the House, how to enhance security of his people. We also have infrastructural deficits. People want to see him go to Abuja to push policies or bills on the floor of the Senate or House of it's Senate there because we didn't do House of Rep there. House of Rep is for via constituency. They should go there and represent their people positively by projecting their interest and fighting for the need of the people at the federal level. That's the essence of their representation. It's not to go to Abuja and sleep.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Barrister Matthew Edagise, for your insightful analysis and contributions to this conversation. You're still watching TMI on the ITV network. We'll take a breather here and be back with more conversation. Stay with us.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Welcome back. We're still talking the Edo by-election, of course, the by-election across Nigeria, and I still have my ever insightful guest, Barrister Matthew, right here in the studio with me. Okay, so moving on to our conversation, how would you assess INEC's performance in these elections?
INEC performance in the by-election will not be a standard to measure their efficiency because of the scope and nature of by-election. It's little in scope. And INEC is a national body. So we basically want to assess INEC based on their performance in general elections. But in terms of organization, I think it was okay because I voted very early, and it did not take the Beavers machine too much time to capture my facials. Although I noticed some persons were struggling to get their faces captured, and I do not know why that problem. Because if you have your identity in the system, so capturing your face would have been very seamless. But some people struggle. I thought that was a very serious technical problem. But when it was my turn, it captured it without much stress. So maybe they have to look into what is responsible for that.
Okay, another thing that has characterized the by-elections is the Labour Party's exclusion due to irregularities in the primaries. Would you say this is due diligence from INEC's part, or, you know, just a breach of protocol?
Whatever predicament that is bedeviling the Labour Party as we speak cannot be, you cannot put the blame on the table of INEC, because the court has ruled severally in their various judgments that party leadership and whatever they are doing, that the court will not interfere with the internal arrangement of political parties. It's their private business. So if you do your private business in a way that it becomes harmful to the interest of your members, the consequence will fall back on the same party, because there are party constitutions which should be adhered to, and a breach of it will naturally make the entire process a nullity, because members who are aggrieved or who feel shortchanged will approach the courts, and as it happened in Labour Party's case, they were in courts against each other within the same party. And when the court decides, INEC have no power to do otherwise. They simply have to comply with the court decision. That was what happened. Court declared that the tenure of the Labour Party president has since elapsed. I think they fought it to Supreme Court level, and he was still insisting that he is in charge. INEC will not patronize illegality. So you blame the Labour Party leadership for their predicament, for refusing to adhere to democratic tenets and internal party democracy. So that was what hit them. Nobody attacked them from outside. It was internal crisis that consumed the opportunity to be part of this election.
Okay, talking legislative matters a lot more. INEC often claims it cannot prosecute electoral offenders directly. Is this not a political loophole, a legislative loophole altogether?
Political? INEC basically is saddled with the duty and responsibility to conduct election. It is not a law enforcement agency. So it will be an indictment on our entire criminal justice system if we now expect INEC to be the prosecutor. When we have the police, the DSS, we have the civil defense. These are all law enforcement agents. If they have failed in their duty to apprehend those who perpetrate crime, anywhere, whether electoral or any other where, crime is crime. And there are laws already in place to deal with any violator of these processes. So why would they want INEC to be the one to make arrests and prosecute?
Because they're the body that conducts
INEC
the
are not
elections.
armed. INEC have no power to arrest anybody. They have no physical, they are not equipped to arrest anybody. INEC will shout on top of their voice. It is the police that will make the arrest, DSS. So what are those agencies doing? Because if they arrest, they have the power to prosecute. So why are we saying offenders are going scot-free because INEC refused to prosecute them? Who should prosecute? It is the agencies. And once they arrest and they arraign, some of them can be prosecuted in the regular courts, magistrate courts. Even magistrate courts can handle such offenses. Then if you get to the high courts, you have the DPP in various states of the federation. So why are these agencies, these institutions not working? Why trying to add this extra burden to INEC already overburdened responsibility?
Overburdened responsibility.
Yes, yes.
Now let's talk about the responsibility of INEC, which you actually affirmed that there were beaver glitches, even in your very coordinated
Yes.
station. So, like, is this not disenfranchisement for those who, you know, had that lag and decided not to vote, maybe went home without voting, or just had a dampened spirits? What would you say about this?
I never said they virtually were turned away. I'm saying it took longer time to get their facials captured. some persons. They eventually got captured. But it shouldn't be like that. That's what I'm saying. Whatever is behind that technological lapse that is making some faces difficult to capture, they should fix it.
Definitely. Right here in the studio with me, joining us also as a guest, we have Comrade Emmanuel Ugbidi, who is the President, Network of Civil Society Nigeria. Very good to have you,
Network of Civil Society Organizations of Nigeria.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you,
Good
sir.
morning, Nigerians.
Okay, just before you did join us, we have been talking about the by-elections and the projections for 2027. And I was having a conversation with the barrister here. And just to wrap up our side of the conversation, let's talk about the projections for 2027 with the weak strength of the PDP winning just one seat in these elections and, you know, the LP being excluded. And we also have the ADC who did not show up at all. What does this tell for the opposition in 2027? Barrister.
Oh, 2027 is still a distance away from here. But then, when you are doing a marathon, the way you start the race, you have a role to play in how you will end it. From the by-election and the strength showed by the various political actors, in terms of political parties, I think APC still remain dominant. You may say they have power of Ikubens and all that. No, this is not the first time Ikubens are losing election in any part of the world. Ikuben lost to Donald Trump in America. Jonathan lost at an Ikubens. So it's not an excuse that because you are running against Ikubens, the champion cannot be dethroned. You must put in enough training and you must have enough determination to push your agenda across. And what is happening to the opposition parties and to parties in Nigeria is that there is no mentorship arrangement. We are seeing recycling of old faces, all of the places. The youth, no fresh blood is injected into the system. And when you are not injecting fresh blood into a team, it will die gradually. For instance, you see all the parties, basically. The only role they reserve for the youth is the youth leader. We are not seeing youth occupying decision-making process position in the parties. We are not seeing youth who are chairman of the major parties. We are not seeing youth who are organizing secretaries. They just give them one slot, youth leader. That does not invigorate the party. And any tree that is not sprouting out new leaves, shedding leaves, will naturally wither and die. So the party should learn to develop this grooming of people to take over leadership position within the party, and also to project them for elected position outside the party, on behalf of the party, to contest for elections. But if you are not introducing new faces, chances are that people are getting fed up with these same faces they are seeing. So the drive to patronize them will not be there. That's why you are seeing voters apathy. People want to try new things when old things are not even bringing the desired results. That is a problem with the system.
All right, Comrade Emmanuel, what's your take for the projections for 2027, seeing how weak the opposition parties' turnout and, you know, performance was in these particular elections?
Okay, I think it's a major concern. It's a major concern because very recently we are beginning to see that there is serious orchestration or conscious efforts to weaken oppositions in the country. And if you ask me now, I'll say it's part of politics. The incumbent will want to make sure that he has no or little oppositions in his contest. It is the responsibility of the opposition to wake up and galvanize, organize, and mobilize with strategy. Like my brother said, part of the strategy is throwing up new and acceptable faces. So it is the responsibility of the opposition to wake up to their responsibility. And it is the responsibility of the incumbent to make sure they make their opposition not capable to contest with them. So if you ask me, this is just a reflection of what we are expecting or will likely see in 2027, except something dramatic and something drastic happens within our political space. And therefore, we encourage, even if the political opposition seems to be failing and not getting it right, then there should be a rising of the people's opposition. The people's opposition is stronger than any opposition, which is building the political consciousness of Nigerians across board. The youth, the women, the men, and everybody to wake up so that it doesn't matter the platform with which you are contesting. It doesn't matter your incumbency. What matters is your performance. Is the people happy with you? Are they satisfied with your performance for the first 4 years? If no, if the people can organize whichever platform the people choose to queue behind, depending on whoever is thrown out from that platform, it can make a change. So that era where you say we have two major political parties or one major or we have incumbent, we no longer play, because the people's opposition will determine the direction of leadership. And gone are the days where leadership or return of second tenure is dependent on the party at the center. No, the people's opposition in building that consciousness, return to office is determined by performance. So I want to encourage the political oppositions, as it were, in this country today, the PDP, the ADC, the Labour. They should wake up to their responsibility. Nigerians is looking up to them, because democracy remains the worst government or form of government anywhere in the world without a viable opposition. We are not saying opposition should rise up because everybody hates the incumbent. No. The incumbent will sit and relax and do what they like if there is no opposition to put them on their toes. Their policy will be inimical and they won't mind because nobody is asking. Their policy will be killing Nigeria. The economic policy will be draining Nigerians. They will not be interested because they seem not to be afraid of anything that is coming. But when the opposition, when they see that there's an alternative to them, if anything happens, if they are not doing well, if they are not performing, they can be rejected tomorrow. Then you see even the ruling party will wake up and the opposition as well will be thriving. So if you look at the election just now, we want to encourage those that are preparing for the 2027. But you see, all of this thing is also determined by the body language of the electoral umpire and the system itself. When opposition begin to have the feelings that nothing will change, even if we put in our resources, even if we put in our best, results have been written, or the electoral umpire will not seem to do the right thing, you see, this thing will be done. But that is not totally correct. It is for you to do your part. It is for you to mobilize the people, because it is an election that you win with slim margin. You talk of rigging. When you have a full-scale mobilization across the nation, across the state, across the district, and people have the consciousness of voting and defending their vote, it is difficult for you to have either the electoral umpire or having the power of incumbency to manipulate. Like he rightly said, we've seen incumbents being defeated both in Nigeria and in other civilized countries. So it's something that we can sustain. But first of all, we must build political consciousness beyond opposition, even into the people's opposition. That's my take.
Okay, just before we round off, I was saying that there are speculations of vote buying, low voter turnout, and of course harassment that characterize these by-elections. What's your take on that?
Yes, also in same vein, monitoring the just concluded election, we saw the news of harassment and intimidation in some parts of the state. It is condemnable, it is uncalled for, and it is not necessary. It is not in every election, whether by-election or major election, you see that all the various vices will characterize such election. To me, it is not a good record and it is not a good omen for what is ahead of us. Now, the question you ask, where was the security agencies as at the time of this violence that were meted in those scenes? Where were the security agencies when all of the vote buying allegations and saga were going on? Now, you will now understand with me that sometimes we attempt to understand or believe that the hardship that the people are passing through is a conscious and a predetermined orchestration to make the people willing or being interested in, you know, the monies that will be given to them. Because the hunger in the land today, there are some persons that even 1,000 naira will entice them to sell their vote. Right. So if you look at the economic situation of as it were today, you see the reasons why vote buying characterize the system, and you see the issue of a violent attack as security failure, and also we'll see the voters' apathy as a protest to the fact that people no longer have confidence in the electoral umpire, and which is the responsibility of INEC to redeem their image. Okay,
Comrade Emmanuel Ogbidi, thank you so much for your insight. You are the president, a network of civil society organization Nigeria, and it was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And also Barrister Matthew Edagise, who is a human rights lawyer. Thank you so much for your insights on today's topic, which we did explore the by-elections and the projections for the 2027 elections.